Hi, my name is Abby Chunestudy, and this is my wildflower seed harvester. My mom loves to plant wildflowers every spring and then collect their seeds at the end of the season to plant next year. She loves the wildflowers, but harvesting the seeds by hand can be a tedious and time-consuming task. This seed harvester simplifies the process. To harvest the seeds, place dead flower heads inside the housing. Use the small press with a textured bottom to gently break apart the flower heads. Remove the separation plate and give the whole thing a shake. Pull out one of the trays according to seed size, and now your seeds are ready to be stored for next year. I started the seed harvester by making the housing. I used a 3-inch diameter ABS pipe that I cut down to length. I then cut a slot into the pipe for where the seed trays and separating plates sit. I made the seed trays by cutting down some plastic jars that already met the dimensions of the housing. To make the different size seed trays, I drilled decreasing hole sizes into the trays to get layers of sifters. I left the bottom tray hole to catch the smallest seeds and debris. The seed trays already fit pretty snugly inside the housing as is, but they have a slight tendency to shift up and down freely. To give the seed trays some vertical support, I inserted some pegs through the back of the housing and drilled a hole into the rear wall of each seed tray where it will insert into the support peg. The next component I worked on was the wood press that the texture plate attaches to. I used a 1-inch thick piece of plywood for this piece. I started by cutting down the piece to width and then cutting it down by length to get a 3-inch by 3-inch square. I then sanded down the corners to make a circular piece. Finally, I attached a knob on top to make it easier to hold. Next, I made the separating plate that sits on top of the seed tray stack. I used a thin sheet of plywood that I cut down to size using the same process as before. I left extra material in the front and rounded out the back so that this component sits snugly inside the housing but has enough hanging out to easily grab and remove the plate. The last component to make is the texture plate. I used some air-dry clay that I stuck to the bottom of the wood press. I pressed the clay to make sure I got a smooth and level surface and cleaned up the excess clay coming over the edges. Then, using a pencil as a shaping tool, I pressed a crossed pattern into the clay. I went back over a few times to make sure there were no sharp edges or deep grooves that seeds might get stuck in. After I was happy with the design, I left the clay to dry overnight. After completing all the components, all the pieces are assembled into the housing and the seed harvester is ready for use.